Welcome to Turning Pain into Purpose with Joeel and Natalie Rivera. In this 4-part podcast, we share the stories of how the heartache and challenges in our lives were the fuel that ignited our passions, called us to become entrepreneurs, and gave us the freedom to determine our destiny and fulfill our life's greater purpose. We hope this show inspires you to believe that within any challenge or pain lies the seeds of possibility for transformation, meaning, and purpose. No matter where you are or what you've been through, you have a unique gift to share with the world. Life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Welcome, everyone. So in the last episode, we share our story about how we met and all the shenanigans of the different things that we've done as our business has evolved while we've been working together over the years. Everything from cliff diving into business and to accepting defeat in certain areas and going green. And we left off sharing about a story about our transition period, and we went on some trips that shook things up a little bit and put us on a new path. And so just like in the last episode, we were going through different phases of a journey. And so this next part of our journey could have a lot of different names. It could be realignment, maybe awakening, or a kick in the pants, or almost dying, or online courses, or maybe even holy crap. That's the kind of journey that we were about to go on.
And it's a journey that we really weren't prepared for at the time, and we really weren't expecting at the time. But I guess in some ways, in retrospect, it's almost what we needed at the time as well. And it started when we came back from Costa Rica. And several weeks after coming back, I woke up at 2 a.m. We were in Washington, D.C., taking our daughter to see the Smithsonian. It's beautiful if you've never been to. And I woke up, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was sweating profusely. I was shaking. My blood pressure was through the roof. My heart rate was through the roof. And I jumped in the shower because had sweat so much. I didn't know what was happening. I said, well, it's just it'll pass. Maybe it's just a fluke. And I went back to sleep, and what ended up happening was that it happened again. So an hour later, I woke up, and it happened again. And then an hour later, I woke up, and it happened again. And it kept happening for months, nonstop. And I didn't know what it was, and then it started happening during the day where I would get the shakes and I would get all sweaty and my blood pressure would skyrocket. And it just kept progressing and progressing. And I had no answers. We went to a bunch of doctors, specialists, Center for Disease Control of Tampa, worked with the universities here. I was like their little guinea pig for them to try out different things. I kept getting new medications that were destroying my body even more. So I don't know what was worse, the illness or the medication, to be honest with you. But it just kept destroying my body and my mental state and my ability to do anything because I couldn't walk. I couldn't barely eat. I couldn't swallow. So I had to eat baby food. So it was really a challenging moment in our journey.
And while all this was going on, at least at first, we were still trying to run a business. And actually, a lot of people don't know this, but that book series that I mentioned in the last episode, we actually were publishing our second book in the series while Joeel was going through this during the first couple months of it. And he came to the book launch and we had all of these authors there and no one had any idea what was going on. And at that point, even though he was in such bad shape, some of the time he was still functional. But as he said, it's it just kept continuing and got worse. And so over time after that, ultimately, we ended up stopping basically everything that we were doing in our businesses. We were no longer coaching. We weren't doing any teaching or speaking. We stopped running events. Basically, everything came to a screeching halt and our business crumbled around us. And that pushed us to let go of some things that we'd been holding on to, even though we'd already let go of a bunch of stuff. It was further pushing us to let things go and see what was supposed to happen for us next.
It was interesting. I was actually also teaching psychology at the time at one of the colleges, and I had to stop teaching in the middle of the semester because I was almost passing out during class. I just couldn't. My body was so weak. But one thing I really learned from the whole experience is I got really good at being in a meditative state. For hours, sometimes my body would shake uncontrollably. And again, my blood pressure would be so high, or I would take a medication that would basically have me have a seizure for an hour. So what I really learned was, how can I be in this meditative state and to be an acceptance for what it is, and really find gratitude in some of those simple things in life. For me, my adventure was going to the backyard and watching the bees, or watching the birds. I knew where all the nests were in the backyard and everything. And that was my oneness, really, because I didn't step outside of that world because I could barely walk. So, even leaving the house was a challenge. So it was really getting in that state where I couldn't control my physical body, but I can still control my state and how I felt inside, and find the happiness through all the craziness.
And what was really interesting for me is that even though I wasn't the one that was sick, I ultimately ended up becoming Joel's full-time caretaker. And I also ended up, sitting in the backyard, watching the bees, and just getting a different perspective on life. And obviously at the same time, I was still trying to hold whatever I could together with our business. And like I said, we basically stopped everything. But one thing that we did keep going was our magazine, because it was digital and we had subscriptions. And so it took very little time to actually keep it going. And it also had residual income, which is what basically we're survived off of. So if we didn't have that, I don't even know where we'd be, because that is what basically kept our head above water. And so I remember, just in one of those moments of clarity, talking about it and being like, this whole subscription thing, this residual income that comes in with barely any work, we need more of this, because we don't want to ever have to be in this situation again. I mean, we were at the point where a couple of the months we actually had to pay our staff on a credit card. So for anyone out there who already has a business that's listening to this, you can kind of get the sense of where we were at and why we saw the fact that we were able to have this passive income that came in no matter what happened, was such a tremendous blessing. And so it made a big imprint on us at the time. And we definitely walked away from the experience changed in many ways, but this was one of them. And so a lot of what comes after this has to do with that lesson.
Yeah, and one of the things, it's not even paying staff with credit cards, is the reality that basically we had to pay for our groceries and everything with credit cards. And even, months, we don't even know how money would come in, but we were so blessed that sometimes money would just come in, to help us just meet our basic needs. And one of the things that we did was that we really looked at the situation and thought, I can look at this and freak out, or really see it as a blessing and think, maybe this is a sabbatical. Maybe this is what I needed to really reflect on my own life and what I wanted to create in my journey and how I wanted to contribute. Because, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you get lost. And as a person in life, you get lost about your purpose, about your why you do the things that you do. One of the things that we ended up doing was we started putting pictures all up in the ceilings, on the walls, of things that we still wanted to do, things that we were passionate about. And as I lay there in bed, we would look at the pictures and images and visualize, sit there holding hands and act like we're going on this epic adventure, as if we were there. And it really helped us develop hope. And what we did was that we looked at it as a sabbatical, an ability to grow. So we would listen to audiobooks, we would take courses, I would watch YouTube videos consistently all the time. So I was really able to learn a lot, but really reflect again on my legacy. I had to accept that, what if I'm not going to make it from this? I had to come to a conclusion that maybe I won't make it. I had these big vision of my life and what I would do and who I would help. What if that's all gone? What if everything that I learned, I spent all this time in my life really learning so I can contribute to others. What if that legacy was completely gone? What did I really leave behind? I might have done workshops and stuff, but that's gone now. People might forget about that information. How could I really make a difference in the life of other people and share the knowledge that I had?
And so some of the things that we started learning about were online courses. And we actually had already created a few. And that was another part of that lesson about the residual income, is that we had the magazine, but we also had a few courses that we had created, and it didn't bring in a lot, but at the time it felt like a lot to us.
Yeah.
And again, like the courses were completely passive. Like those we had created like a year or even 2 years earlier, and they just kind of sat there and continued to make us money. And so when Joel was, taking online courses himself and learning about this field, he started realizing that there's so much more that we could be doing with it. And we talked about doing it before and just hadn't had the time. We had all these other responsibilities going on with all these other different parts of our business. And this experience took all of that stuff off our plate. And all of a sudden, here we are with this opportunity to create online courses, which is something we'd wanted to do for a long time. And we saw it as a potential solution, not only to have something that we could do, within our limited circumstances, but also something that would be able to create more of that passive income that we had realized that we wanted more of.
Yeah, and so as I laid in bed and I studied online courses, I started thinking, what could I create? What could we create? The curriculum, I would go through everything in my head just so I can be ready for that moment. And I think anything in life, regardless of the challenges that you're going through, is about being ready for that moment. It's about having the foundation and building it, even if you have to do it slowly because you have so many things going on and you can't really deep dive at that moment. But if you're not ready, if you don't have the foundation, then you're not going to be able to be successful. And I think that's what we did for a long time, is just develop that foundation. And the last time that happened, I was hospitalized, and I was hospitalized for a week, and I could see the beach on the other side. There's an island, Clearwater Beach, and I would see it. And I would tell my wife, just keep blinking. We got to have faith, just keep blinking, one day at a time. And before we know, we'll get there. We'll be over there. And what's interesting is that after being in the hospital for a week, they did give me antibiotics that ended up helping cure me. But because I lost all my muscle mass, took me so long to rebuild. I lost some of my digestive tract. I wasn't able to really process food. So it took me a long time just to be able to do the basic things. So it wasn't about just taking antibiotics so you're better in a week. It's about, it took me over a year to really be able to recover and do better. And as I recovered, I really started making like 10-minute videos a day, and then I would go back to fetal position. But what we did is that we slowly started producing courses and started making money off those courses. And it just kept snowballing from there.
And so the lesson that we learned here was that even in what we felt like was like an impossible situation, as far as being able to work, like we found something that fulfilled multiple needs. One being that we could actually do it from home. Joel could take his time and do it when he felt strong enough, and it could create an income for us. And it's like it clicked, because we had so much content. There's so many things that we had taught over the years. So what we ultimately did is we turned all of those workshops that we used to do, all of our, coach training programs, over time, over a couple of years, we literally turned everything that we had ever taught into a virtual program on video. So not only could we reach the people we could no longer reach because we couldn't leave the house, but we could reach people all over the world. For the first time, we weren't just limited to whoever we could get in front of physically in person. And then it also just opened our mind to an entire new industry and all of the other things that we could do with it. And so, not only did the money that it started to bring in help us, get back on our feet and sustain us, but just the knowing that we had been put in this position to learn the lessons, to open up this door of opportunity, also kept us inspired and moving forward in our lives, and is ultimately what got us to where we are now, which is another part of our journey that we would call legacy, or maybe even freedom.
Yeah, and one of the things I always think about is that we don't realize how vulnerable we really are sometimes. And we don't realize that everything can change in a minute, both for the worse and for the better. And that we have to be in a state of gratitude of what we have now. And that we also have to prepare. We can't be so dependent on just one source of income, that we have to be there, because what happens if we get sick? What happens if a family member gets sick? And we have to take care of them. And that's really one of the biggest lessons from that experience. And it's realizing that nothing's guaranteed, and that, you have to embrace the moment and then live your purpose to the fullest. And that's really what we did. And a year after the hospital stay, we actually ended up moving into the condos that we could see from the hospital. And that's like mind-boggling. At the time, we had sold all our furniture just to be able to eat, so it's, to go from that perspective of walking to your living room and having nothing in your living room or nothing anywhere else in your house, basically, because you sold what you could just to survive, to then a year later moving there, it really transformed our lives. We were able to go on the cruise that we had seen in the photos. We did a lot of the snorkeling, a lot of the things, a lot of the adventures that we had dreamed of during that circumstance. And it's really just transformed our lives to really embrace our true purpose and embrace online teaching and be able to share our knowledge and our legacy with those that we want to contribute to.
And so, like Joel's saying, that where we got to in such a short period of time, on one hand, was because we had found this amazing market of online courses. So even though we talked to many different people that are entrepreneurs, and we are passionate about entrepreneurship in general, if you listen to our other podcasts, you'll find that we tend to come back to talking about online courses a lot. And it's because we're passionate about it, and we are excited that we know that other people can benefit from this new industry in the same way we have. But also, ultimately, it's like the online courses it saved our lives. So, we have an emotional attachment to it. And it's just a great example. Our story is a great example of that. No matter what happens to you, if you're willing to look for the lessons and learn and grow and transform through the process, that it can ultimately lead you to a blessing that you never would have imagined. And so today, which is, another 2 years later after we moved into the condos that we saw from the hospital, now we have over 60 courses and over 60,000 students from 189 countries. And mind you, there's only like 193 or 94 countries in the world. So that's almost every country of the world. And we just never could have imagined that we would be where we are today. And really, the message more than anything is ultimately to keep the faith.
Yeah. Well, to really realize that in the worst case scenarios in your life, that if you just keep blinking, and if you just find something to hold on to, a sense of purpose, something that gives you hope, something that can make you focus on your future and what you might be able to create in your future, that's something that gets you so excited that it'll pull you instead of you keep pushing. Because, for example, in my situation, there's only so much pushing I could have done. Like trying to push myself to be better, trying to push myself to try to create something that is going to help us financially. But when I found my why, when I found my purpose, when I saw that I can contribute through online courses, then I had something that could pull me, that would get me excited, that even if I only had 10 minutes a day where my body wasn't freaking out, I could still focus on that course I was going to create and how it was going to make a difference in people's lives from all over the world. And how I was going to be able to share this knowledge because I knew it was so powerful. And even for me, it was like applying some of these things, learning NLP techniques to apply to myself, to get myself in that right state of mind, to empower myself. And really with time is that our business grew. It got better than we could have ever imagined. We developed freedom and had really no worries to do what we wanted, when we wanted, with who we wanted, and really contribute to the life of those around us.
And so this is why we have been on this mission ever since, to share what we've learned with other people and to tell our story. In fact, our other podcast is called Freedom or Bust. And the reason why is because all along, what we really wanted in our lives was freedom. We wanted to be able to have flexibility and to generate income in a way that we weren't tied down. And that's what we always wanted, but we kept creating things that just bogged us down, or we had limiting beliefs that held us back from creating what we truly had always desired. And deep down inside of us, we always knew that we weren't meant to fit in a box. Like, that's why, you already heard our stories, like that we just couldn't do it. We tried, and we knew entrepreneurship was the answer, but yet we were doing it kind of like the old way. We didn't realize we lived in the information age and the online age, and that through online business and through information products, we could have a different lifestyle. We realized we wanted the lifestyle of freedom. And so freedom or bust really is about saying freedom is what I want, and I'm going to go for it no matter what. And so that's really what we do now more than anything. Of course, we still create online courses and we do a lot of other things, but our mission really is to help inspire people to either become entrepreneurs or escape the rat race, or even just add a side hustle to what they're doing in their careers. And if you're already an entrepreneur, it's inspiring you to take that next step, to really reflect on the legacy that you want to leave behind and the lifestyle that you want to live, and build your business around the life you want, not adjust the life you have around a business that you're creating that isn't even what you want. And so that's our challenge to people, and more than anything, to find purpose in their pain and to turn whatever it is that they've been through into meaning in their lives, and really just honor who they are and do what they were born to do.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's just recognizing that you're here for a purpose. Your life has meaning. And that, again, regardless of the challenges, is that things can change so quickly that anything is possible, really. Like, if you look at our journey and some of the people that we'll be interviewing and stuff like that, it's just the ability to overcome. There's a human will within us that is such a powerful force to overcome anything in our lives, to create whatever we want to create, to realize that you can be in a place that you cannot see how you can go from point A to point B, but all you have to do is keep taking the next step and the next step. And it kind of builds upon that. And before you know it, in a blink of an eye, you'll look back and you're like, how did I even get here? Who was that person in my past, both emotionally, psychologically, financially, because what happens is that if you keep chipping away, it's almost like when you have that nephew or niece that you haven't seen like in 6 months, and they've changed so much, or in a year and they changed so much, and their parents are like, well, they kind of look the same to me, because they've been seeing them every day. But the same thing happens in our lives. Sometimes we don't realize the small changes that we're doing every day and how it's impacting us until we really reflect a year later of actually doing those small things, of how much our life has changed. And really what we want to give you is the gift that you already have within you. Is to recognize the power that you have to change your life, and the power that you have to create your own destiny. To recognize that there is no limitations that you have that will limit you to achieve your dreams. That anything you want is possible, and that you can create it starting today with an action plan to just take that next step.
And I would just add to that if you aren't already listening to our other podcast, Freedom or Bust, we invite you there. And that really, what we want you to know is that with a combination between like a positive attitude and a vision for your life and radical personal responsibility, you literally are the one that can create the destiny that you desire. You're not a victim of circumstances. As Joeel always says, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And so if you've made it all the way to the end of this series of us talking about our journey, we hope more than anything that you can take that away, because that is the message that this happened to us, so we can share this message with the world. That if we could make it through what we've been through and get to where we are, then there's no reason you can't get from where you are to where you dream to be.
And I always said too, that life is a game, and it's just learning how to play it. And that's what it comes down to. What game do you want to play? And then take the steps to learn that game. And with the podcast, Freedom or Bust, we want to be able to share with you how to play that game that really we dedicated so many years just trying to learn it with all the businesses that we started to be able to be where we're at today. And again, we just want to help you be and really fulfill your full self and what you came here to do. So thank you. We're truly honored, and we look forward to serving you.
Thank you, fellow Freedom Junkies, for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to help us grow, please rate and share this podcast. You can also become a member of Freedom Nation. Visit freedomorbustpodcast.com and sign up to receive access to exclusive content and take the 21-day happiness challenge. As you know, we believe that entrepreneurship is the ultimate form of empowerment, which is why we created the Side Hustle Business Startup course for anyone looking to create their own income and take back their power. We offer an exclusive discount for our podcast listeners. Find out more at freedomorbustpodcast.com.